Hello, welcome back. Today we talk about a topic that gets way more popular, almost day by day, within the last 12 months. And in this video, I'll talk about classical reissues. There are some reasons for them becoming more and more popular. I want to get into those, of course, too. And I want to show you some of my absolute favorites and tell you why they are. Before we get into real reissues, we have something new and something special from the French record company, Classical Records. It's their second release. The first one came around two and a half years ago with this beautiful Debussy record. That was their first release. Now we have a new one, their second release, and that's the Russell, Debussy and Ravel release. Here you see the cover art, the cover. This, for example, I love that this is in gold, real gold. So as you may know, also the French record company goes the whole 9 yards when it comes to the way they do their releases. All handmade, all analog on a tube-driven mastering system. But there is something very special again with this release like it is with the first, which is, I think, sold out, the first one. If you are lucky, you can get this one still when you see the video. Just visit the French record company website and then you see if it's still available. But I think for now you can get that one. What's so special about this release, next to the overall wonderful quality, no matter if you see the handmade jacket, the design of the cover art, this is designed by the people who bring out this release, as this is a first release. So no reissue, this is a first release of this title, which makes it, of course, quite special. We have something a little similar to the Electric Recording Company. So very low numbers, strictly limited, all handmade whenever possible and when it makes sense. So you have here again an early classical recording, which in my personal case, and when it comes to my personal case, for me personally, I really do love those early classical releases, and they embody the whole idea in a way more for me, like the newer releases they do on the classical market. There are several reasons within the video. I might get a little deeper into it. I show you also the wonderful label and the craftsmanship behind this pressing. You have this deep groove here. I hope you can see it. So this is a real stunner. It sounds so authentic that it's a real pleasure to listen to this. If you are interested in those kind of very ambitious releases, visit their website, French Record Company, and see if you can get a copy for yourself. But of course, be aware that those releases, of course, doesn't come cheap. You know, that being said, that being showed, let's get into another pillar or another reason why the classical reissues are so popular right now. Another everything but unimportant part of this new boom when it comes to classical reissues carries the name of Deutsche Gramophone, and especially their original Source series. Here you see the label you have on every release of their original Source series. And again, we have in these series we have everything we want as audiophiles from a record. We have an all analog production. We have people who do care and love what they do. I made a live stream with the people from the Emil Balino studios in Berlin on my German channel. Maybe even if you are not so familiar with German, visit this live stream. It should have now English subtitles so that you can see the love, the work they put into these releases. They even developed an own way of doing those, because you have those multi-tracks, and now they found a way, they developed a way of doing this. Let's get through some of their recent titles. We have here Gustav Mahler's Sixth Symphony, conducted by Herbert von Karajan with the Berliner Philharmonics, double album. You know, every release has this card with the photo of the original tape. That really makes sense. That's really quite something. And usually those releases are top-notch quality. Comes in wonderful quality, very soft, not glossy, but very soft, beautiful jackets and cover art. Here we have the Winter Dreams by Tchaikovsky, Symphony No. 1. Another beautiful example of the series. Another example is the Scriabin and Tchaikovsky, Romeo and Julia. From Scriabin, we have Le Poème de l'Extase. I'm always sorry when it is French, so I probably do butcher French quite heavily. Here from the Boston Symphony Orchestra, conducted by Claudio Abbado. So those are really big names when it comes to classical releases. Again, wonderful gatefold jacket. They really do a wonderful job with those releases. And when this series came out, it really opened the mind for a lot of collectors to get into classical reissues, get back into classical reissues. And ever since I see that at my shop, the interest and the sales on the classical titles doubled, some of them even tripled. So that's a quite impressive effect. And also, of course, due to those series and other reasons, we had a lot of very good and interesting videos by other YouTubers who talked about classical reissues and how wonderful they can be in a lot of titles. And now another absolute highlight I enjoyed very much. It's Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart Requiem, Vienna Philharmonic Orchestra. Brilliant title, really cool. I really do hope that they continue this series and we get more and more of those wonderful releases. And as I said, I made this stream with Emil, with Sidney Clare-Meyer and the boss of the Emil Berliner studios, and there you can see how much heart, knowledge and love they put into those releases, and then you get the idea, and then you know why they are as good as we get them right now. But this, to be quite honest, and I have to criticize that a little bit, that goes for this series we talk here about. The general releases, classical releases from Deutsche Gramophone, quite often they do not put that much effort into them. And if you don't you immediately hear that, feel that, see that. That's just not the same. I have no idea why they do that. Now that you see how successful this can be, of course this needs more input also when it comes to money and more effort. But if you do it as good as possible. So let's hope that this gets a general thing with the Deutsche Gramophone. Right now it is not. But where they put all their effort in is the Maurice Ravel, the Orchestral Works box set, also within the series. And here we get 4 records. We get Maurice Ravel Bolero, gatefold cover. We get Maurice Ravel Ma Mère Loyer, Menu Antique et les Tombeaux de Couperin, all conducted by the Boston Symphonic Orchestra. And the conductor is Seiji Ozawa. Look at the cover art. Really a wonderful box set. So if you like Ravel, I can imagine that you say that is a must-have. Here's the 4th record. So this box set, this Ravel box set, really cool, really quite something. Let me put that aside. So this is a little overview of the latest reviews, of the latest reissues from the Deutsche Gramophone series. And now let me get into some of my favorites, some classical releases I have for years now in my collection. About some of those I've talked already. Some of you might be new, but I just want to give you an overview about some of my older favorites in a way. Yeah, let's get into classical reissues that kept the classical fever for me alive. And what I show you now are some real giants when it comes to classical music and classical reissues. Killer Grail, of course, the Royal Ballet box set. Wonderful reissue of 45 RPM box set of this classical giant. I think for an original you have to pay between 3,000 and 5,000 euros. It's an incredible expensive record. But the Ernest Amerset Royal Ballet is one of the finest classical releases of all time. Here you can see, as I said, the 45 RPM version. There is also a 33 and a 3rd version available, which is difficult to sleeve because you also have a wonderful booklet in the jacket. So both of those are highly recommended. Of course, you can find the releases I show you now. You find also at my shop. The link is down in the video description down below, so you can look for the title. You can have a look decent and look at it with a lot of informations. There is another box set, another classical box set of another giant, very special, Bach, János Starker. Also 45 RPM box set, which is also the reissue now, in my opinion, has a classical status. Amazing. This is amongst the finest classical recordings I have ever heard. Brilliant, really brilliant. Now let's get through quite some releases, mostly from the Living Stereo series. Winds of War and Peace is not from the Living Stereo series, but maybe a secret recommendation. Try this one out. This is really quite something, and very special. We have it in 2 different versions, a 45 RPM and a 33 1/3 version. Now we get into 2 releases that are not available right now, and I really do hope that Analog Production give those wonderful releases that they get them back in print quite soon. One is Rainer and the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, and that's so easy for me, this title. Also sprach Zarathustra. Let's really hope that this one gets back soon, as this is a wonderful classical reissue. Same goes for Vivaldi, the 4th Season. Not available right now, but I'm in good hope that we will see it back eventually. So now I have a problem in pronouncing the last name of Henrik Serring. Wonderful violin recital, highly recommended if you like this kind of music. Another living stereo from the Boston Symphony Orchestra, Munch. Brilliant. You know, as I said, those are in general early recordings, early classical recordings, but at a high time for doing wonderful recordings. It's the same like we have with the jazz titles. I mean, those classic jazz titles, the way they did them is unreachable. Rhapsody in Blue, Gershwin. Wonderful, easy classical record. Wonderful cover with the woman on the piano. Love it. Of course, we need Bartók, don't we? This is one of the best-selling titles, by the way. Not as big as the Star Car or the Royal Ballet, but still. Now for specialists. This one is crazy, but just a nice addition in see how different things can be. Music for bang, baroom and harp. This is quite something. Try to get as less glare as possible. Try that one out, listen to it. This is quite something. Yeah, and at the end, last but for sure not least, again, 2 of my absolute highlights in the Living Stereo series. We have Mugorsky, Ravel, Pictures at an Exhibition. Amazing. Wonderful record. So if you like classical, if you are into wonderful sounding classical reissues, there won't be any complaint with this release. I remember, I think it was 1.5 year ago when this title actually and finally came back into print. I was so happy to see this, and this is another giant of classical music. Same here. We are talking Respighi, again Chicago Symphony Orchestra, Pines of Rome and Fountains of Rome. Masterpiece. Musically, and of course the reissue, masterpiece. Highly recommended. Yeah, and I think that those are very important releases from Analog Production, because those reissues kept the spirit, the idea of classical reissues alive over all those years. And that makes them gems of their kind, every single release. I hope that we will see in the future, now that classical gets more and more popular again, what I have stated now quite several times, But I hope we see more and more releases, so that we see even a larger variety, that we keep this alive, because this is the basic. This is where it all began in some cases. I mean, Bach, starker Bach, a genius amongst genius. Bach, he gave us everything. There are a lot of musicians who say there is nothing new when it comes to music after Bach. I'm not that deep into this, so that I can say that's true or not. But those people who say that, they know what they are talking about. And so I just believe them. Why not? I mean, hey. Yeah, that was my little take on the classical reissue boom. I hope you enjoyed it a little bit. I have to say thank you very much for your time you spent on this video, and I hope to see you on the next one. Thank you. Bye.